Hello from sunny Somerset. Well, it's Mothering Sunday on this coming Sunday, and I have obviously ordered some flowers for my mother because my mother lives 228 miles from here, and so I can't really whip round my garden because I no longer deliver flowers UK wide like I used to, and I can't whip round my garden and make a bouquet for her. However, my mother-in-law lives in the tractor shed here, and she's a very nice lady, and she'll need a lovely bouquet of flowers on Mothering Sunday. Now, obviously, not everybody has the time or inclination to cut and make flowers for their mums and their mother-in-laws, and so thank goodness there are florists all around the country growing and cutting amazing British flowers for all those people. And because we've had this lovely warm spring, the gardens have all got ahead, so the locally grown growers, the flower farmers, often, many of them, have more in their gardens than they normally would. So do have a look and see if you've got somebody near your mum or your mother-in-law who could cut flowers and deliver them to your beloveds. However, there may be some amongst you who are keen gardeners, and you may, this happens all the time at this time of year, it is still only mid-March, stand on your back doorstep with a cup of tea and look at apparently a green and brown desert and think, I've got no flowers here to cut for mum, so I'm not going to cut anything, I'm going to order something. Well, I'm here to tell you there may be something actually in your garden. So I'm going to do a little tour of my garden, which is 2 weeks ahead of supposedly being in flower, and see what I can cut. I have a demo on Friday. Yeah, there's always an ulterior motive. I do have an online demo on Friday, so do book a place if you'd like to know how to make a lovely garden bouquet for your mother or your mother-in-law. But as an inspiration, let's have a wander around the garden and see what we can find now. I'm going to start with these wallflowers here, which are fantastic and smell delicious. They smell of honey. So we'll start with the wallflowers, and can you see? Oh, no, but there will be more from this little patch. This is my little patch outside my back door, and it's just it's a smallish bed of about 10 by 4 feet of useful space. I love it. It's always got treats in it because it's a little bit closer to the house, so the warm brick wall radiates heat and I get things earlier in the year. Later on it's a desert, but for the moment it's quite useful. Right, let's have some of these wallflowers and try and keep the hair out of my face. The wallflowers smell so good that I kind of have to keep them near my nose. When you cut them, you may find, these are last year's plants, so it's their second year of flowering. When you cut them, you may find that there are more shoots along the stems, and they will keep growing on those shoots. So it's a bit like late pinching out. And I'm putting them in the bucket, and they've got bees working them already. There are lots of bees out at this time of year, getting blown around, and they love a bit of a scent from a wallflower. Now I'm going to have some of this lovely fresh foliage on the honeysuckle that grows over the porch. Very useful. And I'm always keen on a bit of brachyglottis. I have this in the field, but also outside my back door, so it's dead handy for a close to the house posy. And look, this is what happens when you don't prune all your roses. This is a Shropshire lad, and look, last year's, I've never quite pruned this one, and here are last year's rose hips, which are a great orange colour. So I'm going to prune this rose and have the prunings for my floristry while I'm at it. At this time of year, you'll often find ladybirds coming out in the sun, and people are always asking me how they can get ladybirds into their gardens, and the answer is not to kill off all the green fly or the black fly. Ladybirds won't come unless they've got something to eat. The trusty old euphorbia is another place where the ladybirds like to overwinter. So I'm going to cut a few of these, but I'm going to be a little bit careful. If I spot a ladybird, I will make sure to leave them on the plant, and I'll look when I get inside the studio as well to see if they're dropping out and need bringing back here where they live. There, I told you there'd be ladybirds around here, so I'm going to make sure they stay out and rescue them if I bring them in by mistake. It's worth being a bit careful when cutting euphorbia because the milky sap that they have is quite caustic, so if you get it on your skin you really ought to wash it off. I have skin like leather, which doesn't mind euphorbia sap at all, although it does mind other things. There we are. See you later, ladybird. And look at this, we haven't even left the back door yet, and we've only got wallflowers, rose, foliage and hips, euphorbia, and a little bit of honeysuckle, and already it's a rather lovely combination. Look at the rusty colour of the foliage with the red of the wallflowers. Just say yes. Now, this is a lovely cosy corner between polytunnel and greenhouse where the hawthorn foliage is out earlier than anywhere else in the garden, and you can see deep inside it, if I can find it, if I can get there. Can you see there? Look, that will be the blossom. And you know that old phrase, ne'er cast a clout till the May is out? Well, the hawthorn is the May blossom, and you're not supposed to take a layer of clothing off until then. Personally, I'm boiling hot because we are having a heat wave, so I have taken a layer off. I may regret it later. Hawthorn leaves are edible and very good for you. Can you imagine the vitamin C and the iron in these freshly unfurled leaves? And the other thing about hawthorn is it is supposed to be bad luck if you bring it into the house, but I think that's grossly unfair, because actually the one that is bad luck so hawthorn is the Mayflower, it's the beltane flower, which historically people used to make wreaths of them to wear for May Day. Beltane is May Day. So this is pagan history in the far off distant past, but it was the day that people would be married, and so people would all pledge their troth. So they would make crowns of hawthorn blossom and have parties on May Day. May Day has been a day for celebration for thousands of years. Anyway, so it is unfair that this should be considered bad luck. The one that is bad luck is blackthorn. And the reason it's bad luck is because of the plague, the bubonic plague of the 14th century, when, because everybody died, villagers who remained would bury, poor things, their family and neighbours in plague pits in the countryside, and they would plant blackthorn over the plague pits to keep the wild dogs out. So where you see a stand of blackthorn around and no houses and possibly a distant, very small church on a hill but no village, that's left over from the plague in the 14th century. I have a personal interest. I love this sort of history. I love it. Anyway, so blackthorn is the one that should have the bad fortune attached to it. Although I suspect that the reason it hasn't kept hold of its bad fortune is because of the sloes. The fruit of the blackthorn is the sloe. And what do we like to do with sloes? We like to make gin. And so it can't be bad luck to bring it in the house, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to have sloe gin. So the bad luck has been associated with hawthorn instead. There you go. If you are going to make crowns out of hawthorn, feel free, but do be careful, because there are little thorns and they're very uncomfortable if you get them on your head. Lunch, anyone? Now I'm saving all my yellow daffs and my blue muscari for a grape hyacinth muscari for a fundraising dinner for Ukraine, which is happening on Thursday in Castle Carey, which is not very far from here. And sadly, you can't book a ticket because it's sold. They sold out in 20 minutes. But it is our pleasure, of course, to be donating yellow and blue flowers for that event, because we must support our friends who are being bombed by their neighbours. It's very unfriendly of them. Anyway, this is not a place to get depressed. But these are white narcissi. This is Thalia, Thalia, and she is really very lovely, don't you think? So I've cut 7 of her. Now, how's that for an attractive combination? We've got a little double narcissi, this one. The name of which I cannot remember, but it's very nice. And double daff is a good thing, I think. And we've got the Thalia, we've got the wallflowers, a little bit of the Hawthorn, and the rose, and the euphorbia, and the honeysuckle. And we could stop there, but let's carry on and see what else we can find, because we want to make a lovely big bouquet. I'm always saying to people that if they have a good bit of foliage in their garden, then they've got 3/4 of a bouquet made already. This lovely Euonymus japonica, variegated, is incredibly useful because of the detail, and look at the pink edge to it. So even if you've got very few flowers, this really adds to a bouquet. And then of course my trusty old brachioglossus. Look how I hammer it. You can see the holes where I just cut and cut and cut, and it doesn't mind. So long as I give it a mulch every year, it'll come back for me again and again. This dark-leaved euphorbia is really lovely for cutting as well. I think I'm going to keep this for Friday for my demo, along with the hellebores which grow in the bed with it. And I'm up here in the perennial beds for some contorted willow, curly whirly willow, for some twiggery pokery, some of that bright yellow physocarpus, and there, that lovely rusty colour, that is pheasant grass. And I'll see if there's anything else, but I think that's probably it for up here. So there we have it, a lovely bouquet, and I'm going to turn it, well, it's not a lovely bouquet yet, but I'm going to now turn it into a bouquet, and you'll see the sorts of things that you could create out of your own garden. Don't forget, you can book a place on my workshop. It's a demo actually on Friday at 4:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. I'll try and make sure the link is in the blurb. And then, not long afterwards, we have this little beauty. It's not bad, is it? Really, for a bit of mid-March in the garden. So do join me on Friday, 4:30 p.m. GMT, and I will demonstrate how to make this, or something very like it, out of flowers direct from the garden that you can then do for your mum for Mothering Sunday. The reason we do Mother's Day in this country, this is the UK, I mean, on 3 weekends before Easter, is because it's the Feast of Mother Church. And historically, all the servants in the houses, the big houses, were needed to help over Easter because it was a big event and there'd be lots of people staying and they'd need lots of celebratory food and so on. And so the servants were allowed home after church for lunch to see their families on Mothering Sunday. And they would pick little flowers in the hedgerows to give their mum a posy on Mothering Sunday, which is where the tradition of giving your mother flowers on Mothering Sunday comes from. Imagine in the far off distant past, I'm sure we all had household servants in our background somewhere. Our ancestors walking along the lanes after church, picking violets and primroses to make little posies. This is the descendant of those. Anyway, see you Friday. Join me then. Thanks very much. And if you enjoy these clips and the channel, please subscribe, press the bell icon and we'll tell you when we've got more clips coming up. And if any of the tips and tricks in this piece have been helpful, you can always buy me a coffee. The link is in the bio and in the blurb of all the different clips. Thanks very much for joining me, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.